Hey, what's going on, guys? James here, representing the Geeky Comrade, and I'm bringing you, at the time of recording this for me, a late night episode. It is September 16th, 2018, and the WWE Hell in a Cell pay-per-view just finished up. And I want to bring you this short little video, or I'm hoping it'll be short, but it may not be. But I want to go over my feelings on the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, because typically I feel the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, and typically stipulation-based pay-per-views are really bad, just because A, we don't need them, and B, typically they're done very poorly. But this Hell in a Cell pay-per-view I feel completely different about than I thought I would. So with that being said, let's quickly get into Hell in a Cell 2018. Alright, so Hell in a Cell 2018 started off with the pre-show, the kickoff match, which was the SmackDown Tag Team Championships between the New Day and Rusev Day. So, in case you loved both these teams, you know, a Day would win, so, well, that's not that bad a deal. But anyway, jokes aside, New Day and Rusev Day, I honestly felt this was a great way to kick off the show, being the pre-show match, because New Day and Rusev Day are both so beloved by the audience, they're both so over with the crowd, that, you know, it'd be a great way to entertain the crowd and to get them hyped up for the rest of the card once the show actually gets underway. And the action in this match, I mean, it was a really good match. It would be what you'd more than likely come to expect from a match, or it'd be what you would come to expect from a really good pre-show match, I would say. The New Day and Rusev Day, the chemistry was just it was very good. It was off the charts for this match. They put in a really good effort despite it being the pre-show. And of course, if you have not watched this, what's what I'm looking for here? If you have not watched this pay-per-view, I will be spoiling this, so spoiler warning. There you go. But at the end of the match, New Day was able to pick up the win with Kofi Kingston hitting a Trouble in Paradise on Aiden English. But it was a fine match to be the kickoff match. Then when the show gets underway, we were told on the kickoff show that kicking off the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view for real would be the Hell in a Cell match between Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton. Now, this match, at first, I honestly felt the feud was kind of weak for a Hell in a Cell match. But, of course, with Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton, I would not count either one of them out to put on a good Cell match, despite Jeff technically having his first Hell in a Cell match tonight. But the feeling never went away. It didn't. I still felt personally that the feud was just not warranting the Hell in a Cell. It was a bit weak, and Jeff and Randy put on, you know, a good match to kick off the show. It was gruesome. Randy Orton looked absolutely just malicious, taking a screwdriver, wrapping it, or sticking a screwdriver through the gauge of Jeff Hardy and just twisting it and twisting it and twisting it, and it was absolutely just gruesome, and it was awful to watch, but at the same time you couldn't look away, and that was just one of the spots. But at the same time, this match was more so in the wheelhouse of Jeff Hardy throughout. It was more so of an Extreme Rules match, a hardcore match, with the Cell coming to play, I think, twice. Jeff, baseball slide drop kicked a table into the gut of Randy, which caused Randy to, you know, backpedal into the steel. And then at the end, Jeff was, originally Jeff wanted to do his leapfrog from a small ladder over a big ladder and put Randy through a table. Then he realized with the new Cell, he wouldn't have enough room to do it. And then he decided to, he was hanging on one of the, I guess, kind of beams that was attached to the Cell roof. And whether, I still don't know and the commentary pointed this out as well. If we don't know if Jeff lost his grip or if he intentionally let go, wanting to drop when he did. But Randy moved off the table and he fell from the top of the cell straight to the canvas. And then he was led out on a stretcher. But before that, Randy forced the referee to count Jeff's shoulders to the mat for Randy to win. And again, it was a fine match. It was a fine match. Like I just said, it was a good match to kick off the show, but at the same time, it didn't really need the Hell in a Cell. But after that, I'm trying to remember what would have come. Oh, it was next after that was the SmackDown Women's Championship between Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. Now, this match was very interesting because in case you don't know, at SummerSlam, it was a triple threat between then champion Carmella, Becky Lynch, who, honestly, she was the one who was only supposed to get the opportunity, but Charlotte found a way to get into the match pretty much at the last second. And in the triple threat, Becky had Carmella practically beat, but before Carmella tapped out, she came up from behind Becky, hit the natural selection, and won. Now coming into this, Becky turned heel. She turned on Charlotte at the end of the SummerSlam match, and the crowd, she's completely over with the crowd. Everyone wanted to see Becky walk out with the title at SummerSlam, and she didn't. So everyone was siding with Becky, and still was at this pay-per-view here, Hell in a Cell. And so, everyone was cheering for her, like, in sequences for this match where they went back and forth with the punches. Charlotte was the one being booed despite being the babyface, and Becky was the one getting cheered despite being the heel. But this match was really good, what you would expect from Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. But one thing I noticed was, I honestly don't know why, but since the moment that Becky came up to the main roster, I always thought she kind of had a little bit of edge in her, and not like being edgy, no, but like, the wrestler Edge. I thought she kind of reminded me of the way Edge wrestled and the way that he would like kind of carry himself in the ring, especially when he was a heel, but also at times when he was babyface as well. And yeah, Becky kind of reminded me a little bit of Edge since her debut on the main roster. And to me, the way that, she was hitting some of her moves, especially at a point where she started to come back and she took Charlotte down with a clothesline, to me that just kind of like screamed Edge. And if, Becky tries to implement some things that Edge would do in some of his, big heel runs into her new heel run, I think that could be a very good thing. But little side tangent off. Again, it was a good match, a good second match for the card, and they went back and forth, and at the end, Becky was able to catch Charlotte and pick up the win. And then after the match, Charlotte said, you know what, okay, everything's fine, tried to offer her hand, and Becky refused, essentially saying, you're not going to try and steal my spotlight ever again. And then after that, we got, let's see if I can remember now. After that, we got the Raw Tag Team Championships between Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre, who were the champions coming into this match versus Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. So Rollins and Ambrose, this match, of course, stems not only from the Rollins-Ziggler feud that had been going on, which, of course, led to Ambrose's return from injury, but it also got intermixed with the Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns feud, as Rollins and Ambrose helped their Shield brother from getting attacked or getting attacked by Strowman, who was looking to cash in his Money in the Bank. So, of course, they were helping, and Strowman, despite being super over the crowd, said, "Hey, you know what? You know what I'll do? You know what'll make perfect sense here? I'm gonna enlist the help of two top heels on Raw, Ziggler and McIntyre, and they're gonna help me take out the Shield, or at least they're gonna help me neutralize the Shield so I can try and take out Roman Reigns." Whatever. Despite that, this again was another really solid match between these four guys who obviously have so much chemistry with each other, and as most probably would expect from Ziggler and McIntyre just beating B Team to win the belts, you probably would not expect Rollins and Ambrose to win here, and you would be correct, as Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre did pick up the win. But geez, was it a great match? I mean, honestly, this I don't know. It's hard to say that Ziggler, McIntyre, Rollins, and Ambrose would have stole the show again, because there were some other matches on this card that definitely were just really solid, really good. But like I said, at the end of the day, despite the match being really good, Ziggler and McIntyre were able to pick up the win over Rollins and Ambrose. It was constant back and forth action, but at the end of the day, McIntyre was able to take out Ambrose, and then as Ziggler was about to be put away, it looked like, by Seth Rollins. My brain is all screwed up from what happened later in the show. But as he was about to be taken out by Seth Rollins, who had just hit the superplex and was looking to follow up with the Falcon Arrow, McIntyre came out of nowhere with a Claymore, just laid Rollins out like a mattress, and, that allowed Ziggler to just literally fall into the cover, and 1, 2, 3. And that was the win. But again, it was a really solid match, just like the previous two. And from what we've seen prior to this, I did say this probably was the strongest match on the card. But again, so far the show had been actually a really solid show. And then after that, we had, let me think, as I'm looking at the match card right now, we would have had after that, actually, already, we would have had the WWE Championship match between AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. Now, probably people who weren't really following the WWE to the build-up of Hell in a Cell, much like myself, you probably would have expected Styles and Joe to be inside Hell in a Cell just based on their feud and everything, all the mind games that Joe was doing to AJ. Even bring his family into it. This feud, despite being such a short build-up, was actually a very, very good candidate for a Hell in a Cell match. But it was not, and at the end of the day, I'm glad that it wasn't, because these two men, they told the story well, and AJ was absolutely just enraged by everything Joe was doing. He was putting on an absolute great match with Joe, and at the end of the match, I'm not going to, of course, for none of these matches, I will not go into detail. That's not my area of expertise. But by the end of the match, both men were absolutely spent. But Joe, he locked in. They were going back and forth. Joe locked in the Coquina clutch. And immediately, as he dropped back, AJ was able to just roll and flip through it. And Joe's shoulders were on the canvas, and the ref counted 1, 2, 3. Everyone thought AJ was the winner, with an exception of Joe, who, when the bell rang, of course, he let it go, and he automatically assumed, AJ tapped out. Of course, he was absolutely enraged. He, slid out of the ring. He got in the face of Corey Graves, Cole, and Renee Young. Or not Renee Young. It would have been a SmackDown match, so Graves, Phillips, and Saxton. There we go. And Graves, he said, well, yeah, Joe, I think he may have tapped out. But at first you think, okay, well, he might just be trying to get Joe away from the announce table. But then they show another replay after a little bit, and it actually shows that before ref counted 3, AJ was tapping out, and you could only see that from, that one side of the ring and from the angle that Graves was sitting at. But, it was not clear at all. It was not clear, so the referee's decision would stand, obviously. And AJ barely walks out with a title. And, of course, that finish, it was something that I think the WWE last did with Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk, where Punk actually tapped out to Bryan, but the referee counted his shoulders down after Punk had actually reversed the yes lock. But that is such a cool finish that we haven't seen in such a long time. At least I haven't. And it was a really nice way, to cap off the match and have really neither man look weak. So there we go. But after that we had Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella versus The Miz and Maryse. And then after that, not after that. So this match, it was something. I mean, not every match can be a 5-star match. You have to have some matches that do kind of, act as kind of like filler a bit. Because if you try and put on the best quality matches for a whole pay-per-view, the audience is just going to get gassed. So, this match definitely was probably the weakest match on the card. But that's not to it. It's not to its own detriment. It's not a bad thing that it was the weakest match on the card. The match they knew the story they wanted to tell. They told the story, and the story for this match was Maryse would not get in the ring. She would not face Brie Bella. Every single time that it started, The Miz would find a way to tag himself in, or Maryse would tag out, etc. Just step in between Brie and Maryse, whatever. And that was the story for the match. And of course, we got some good action between Daniel Bryan and The Miz. Brie got some shots in on The Miz, but at the end of the day, Brie actually had the upper hand, was facing Maryse, but Maryse was just able to reverse a roll up, roll through. And the finish looked a bit sloppy, but I kind of think it may have been intentional, since Brie had already said, apparently, from what I'm reading here about the match description, that she was officially retired. I think that the finish was definitely there to say Brie she's not used to competing anymore. So, Miz and Maryse got a win there. And like I said, it was the weakest match on the card, but that definitely was not a bad thing. And then after that, we saw the Raw Women's Championship between Ronda Rousey and Alexa Bliss. Of course, Bliss getting her rematch. Now, this match, of course, it stems from Alexa Bliss losing her title to Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam, in which Ronda Rousey absolutely dominated Alexa Bliss. But again, I wasn't really paying attention to WWE for the build-up to this pay-per-view, so I didn't really know the story coming in. But I quickly learned that despite getting because she got dominated at SummerSlam, Alexa realized she needed to even the odds, so she started taking out the ribs of Ronda Rousey, trying to injure the ribs as much as she could before Hell in a Cell, of course, without allowing Rousey to be injured enough to not be in the match. She did so, and let me just say right now, Jesus Christ, is Ronda Rousey a perfect fit for professional wrestling? It's like she literally gets it. She gets professional wrestling to a T. As she perfectly sold her ribs being hurt, every single opportunity, even after the bell, when The referee and Natalya raised her arm. She tried to raise the other arm to raise the championship, and she sold the ribs still after the match. And I mean, every single time anything would come into play with her core, her abdomen, her ribs, she would sell the pain, the agony that she should be feeling if that were the case. I mean, she just absolutely gets it. And she honestly looked like a just super underdog baby face when she put Alexa Bliss away. Because Alexa, she evened the odds. She was going for the ribs the whole match. But by the end of the day, Ronda was able to just get her on the ground, lock in that armbar, and of course, Alexa tapped out immediately. But like I said, Ronda, she looked like an underdog babyface, and she just gets professional wrestling. So it was nice to see. But we come to the final match on the card, which was the Universal Championship match between Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman inside Hell in a Cell. Now, this match, I wasn't thrilled with the match, honestly. Now, coming from a story perspective, this was the big match of the show, obviously, as it's the main event. You had Mick Foley as the special guest referee inside Hell in a Cell, so you had the story with that. You had the overall story that's been going on for, since last year between Reigns and Strowman. So, just everything about this match fit the Hell in a Cell perfectly. The rivalry warranted the match stipulation. And this match started off with Strowman dominating Reigns from the get-go, as you would expect. Then, as he's dominating Reigns, Reigns started to come back a little bit, get some offense in, and Strowman would, turn the tables and take the offense right back. The Cell actually came into play. So this match, the Cell, how do I want to word this? For this match, the Cell would actually come into play a lot. The Cell actually was a weapon for this match. It honestly just fit. And so it came to a point where both men were trying to hit their big shots, and Reigns was able to reverse Strowman at a point and spear him through a table that was laying in the corner. Of course, Mick ended up only counting 2 because Strowman just kicked out. And after that, there was a point, I don't remember if it was exactly after that or if it was a little bit after with some other offense, but there was a point after that where they were both just laid out, they were spent from just trying to just destroy each other, that, the camera pans to the outside, and we see McIntyre and Ziggler both trying to just force the official to open up the cell door so they can help Strowman. Now, of course, quickly, you have Ambrose and Rollins running down to try and get rid of Ziggler and McIntyre, and McIntyre immediately runs up to try and take both of them out, but of course it's 2-on-1. Rollins and Ambrose get the upper hand over McIntyre, and then they quickly run over to the commentators, to the announce table where Ziggler was hiding behind. So they get in a brawl there, and then Ambrose ends up fighting McIntyre. Ziggler ends up fighting Rollins. So while McIntyre quickly brawls with Ambrose to the crowd, Ziggler is climbing up the cell like a cat so he can avoid Seth Rollins. And then, of course, Seth climbs up because he's not done. He's not finished with Ziggler. So they're climbing up, and then shortly after, McIntyre climbs up. And then shortly after that, Ambrose is back. He's got a kendo stick on his back like this is WrestleMania 32 all over again. He's climbing up. No. Like this is his Hell in a Cell match with Seth Rollins from 2014. Like, it's that all over again. He's climbing up with that. And those 4 men, they're going all out on top of the cell. While Cole is screaming, "Oh, thank God, it held." Because Cole is, he was putting with the fact that, Mick Foley's in this match. Mick Foley's been put through the cell the roof of the cell numerous times. He was putting over the fact that that could happen to one of the men that were on top of the cell. And I like that. Cole did a good job with that line. But eventually, Ambrose and all four men would be just laid out on top of the cell. Ziggler would come to a bit, as would Rollins, and Ziggler would try to escape Rollins and also climb down. Rollins would follow. They're on the side of the cell, and they're hitting each other, punching, headbutts, smashing each other's faces into the side of the cell, when eventually they both end up hitting each other into the cell at the same time. And much like the Rollins-Ambrose Hell in a Cell from 2014, both men end up falling off the cell, going through 2 different announce tables, and then they are just laid out. They are done. Of course, while all this is happening, Strowman and Reigns are still laid out. They have not moved, or they've barely moved. And as you know, of course, they start to come to just a little bit. Out of freaking nowhere, you hear Brock Lesnar's music. Of course, that took everybody by surprise. No one expected Lesnar to actually show up. And then out comes Lesnar and Heyman. You know, they're trying to get the referee to open up the door. And Lesnar, he kicks the door off its hinges. You know how in the first Hell in a Cell, Kane ripped the door off his hinges? Yeah, Lesnar, he went up Kane there. He just kicked the door right off his hinges. And then, of course, Mick Foley came out of the cell, you know, to confront Heyman. And Heyman sprayed him with sprayed something in his eyes, almost like pepper spray. I don't know exactly what it was, obviously, but that's what it reminded me of, was pepper spray. And Mick was down on the outside. And then, so Lesnar, like I said, he kicked the door down. He's in the cell now. He walks up the door, jumps over the top, pulls the door in the ring, puts it in the corner, and then he doesn't do anything with the door, but he does beat Reigns and Strowman with broken table pieces. And after that, he F5s, sorry, it's late at night, I'm kind of tired here, sorry about that yawn. But he F5s, he F5s Strowman. Then he hits the F5 on Reigns on top of Strowman, and then he and Heyman just walk right out, and then as if just like nothing happened, no one else is moving. It's absolute carnage inside Hell in a Cell. And then another referee comes out, realizing that no one is going to be able to finish this match. He just says, you know what? He calls the match off. You know, because you got the referee down, you got both competitors down, you've got Ziggler and Rollins, who just went through the announce table off the new cell, and then you got down on top of the cell, Ambrose and McIntyre. He said, you know what, this match is done, just ring the bell, end it, and let's get these guys some help. And that was Hell in a Cell 2018. And this pay-per-view, it was interesting. It was very interesting because the wrestling was very solid on the show. I mean, it was for a WWE pay-per-view, it was a small card. It was only 8 matches. Well, let's see. Universal, WWE, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It was 8 matches, including the pre-show match. Now, realizing that, like I said, all the matches were solid. Even if Jeff and Randy, the feud was weak, and it didn't really warrant the Hell in a Cell, the match was still fine. All the wrestling was solid, and the weakest match on the show, again, was Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella versus The Miz and Maurice. But even then, you can't have every match be a 5-star classic. That's just, it's not going to work. You have to have some parts of the show which does kind of like scale down things. That way you can pick things back up later. That's the way you progress a match card. And WWE did it perfectly here. And granted, they could because it was such a small card with only 8 matches. Now, what really took me off guard, I want to say, is just the fact that this was Hell in a Cell, a stipulation-based pay-per-view, and it was, I'm going to say right now, it's the best Hell in a Cell pay-per-view WWE has ever, produced, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind. Now, have there been matches from other Hell in a Cell pay-per-views that have been better than some matches on this? Well, yeah, more than likely. Personally, I do have a soft spot in my heart for DX versus Legacy at the first Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. But from a top to bottom card perspective, this show was a damn good show. A great show. And will it go down as the best pay-per-view of this year? Probably not. But it definitely could be, just an overall solid show. And it could go down, well, I guess just as what I said, a solid show. And it could definitely be an underrated show, because I don't think people are going to consider it to be one of the better pay-per-views of this year. But overall, my opinions on the show now. That was Hell in a Cell. That was what I thought. That's what happened. That's what I thought of Hell in a Cell 2018. And it's 8 matches on the card. Let me know what you thought of the show. I really want to know if anyone's going to watch this. I do want to know your opinions for the show. And until next time, guys, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.